folks, welcome to another electrifying interview on Spark Igniting Minds. Introducing Eshwar Sundaresan, a multi-talented individual who seamlessly transitions between various roles with grace and skill. After leaving his corporate job, he has embraced the world of writing, journalism, training, ghostwriting, and counseling with passion and dedication. With notable works such as Behind the Silicon Mask and Bangalored, the Expat Story, Eshwar Sundaresan has captivated audiences with his storytelling prowess. His diverse talents and unwavering commitment to his craft make him a true inspiration for aspiring writers and creatives. Join us on Spark Igniting Minds as we delve into the extraordinary journey of Eshwar Sundaresan.
Good morning, sir. It's a pleasure to have you here on Spark Igniting Minds. We have been associated with you previously also during our Spark Writers Retreat, and it was a wonderful association, I can say. And I want you to support in our future endeavors also. So, firstly, I would like to ask you, you have been working in corporate earlier, and after you quit corporate only because you wanted to take a writing journey, and now you have donned many hats effortlessly, and you have been working as a writer, you have been working as a counselor, then as a ghostwriter, and also as a trainer. So, and I have seen you do, all these exceptionally well. And how do you really strike a balance doing all these jobs together, sir?
It's a very interesting question. Thank you for asking it.
Yeah.
Well, it is a challenge in terms of managing time, managing effort, managing emotions. On a particular day, I might go conduct a corporate training program. I fly back to Bangalore the next morning. I have a counseling session with a person who might be feeling, let's say, suicidal. And then in the evening, I might be writing some corporate content for somebody.
Okay.
And then the very next day, I might be writing a journalism piece. So every day unfolds in a very different way. There is very little predictability about the patterns of work. And that's what makes it exciting and interesting. But the challenges are aplenty. I will have to make sure that I'm in the right frame of mind for that particular kind of work. It's not easy to switch from listening to the travails of a human being as a counselor and then immediately go and write something that sells a particular product or service. You need to switch, need to have buffer activities, and you need to have greater planning abilities. And of course, there is the consequence that, because one is traveling down multiple roads, in other words, one is having multiple journeys at the same time, the point that you reach in your life is a vector sum of all of these journeys.
Yeah.
If you stuck to one lane, you could pick up
You
speed,
can grow.
you can go far, really far.
Yes.
So I am aware of that I have not reached as far as I would have had I chosen only one of these paths. And I am absolutely happy with that because it's a conscious choice on my part that I must have an enriching life. And each of these roles that you mentioned, me as a writer, as a ghostwriter, as a counselor, as a trainer, I derive different kinds of joys and meanings and experiences out of each of these roles.
Okay.
In a classroom, I get the immediacy of the reaction from the audience. I can see that an idea that I'm offering them has a particular kind of impact. In counseling, everything is happening behind closed doors. It's a very sacred space.
Okay.
And it's one-on-one. And you have the opportunity to make a profound impact on one human being. And as a writer, you can hope that your work will have a long shelf life, and somebody who's not even born today might one day pick up that book and maybe gain some insight out of it.
Definitely. Yeah.
So had I given up any of these things, I wouldn't have had, one, a very interesting journey, and two, I wouldn't have been able to explore different parts of my own inner psyche. And I'll also tell you an advantage of this. So this, what we are talking about is being a deep professional versus a broad professional. So when the pandemic struck, right, a lot of training programs came to a standstill. Corporates, if at all they were doing programs, they were online.
Yes.
Right? But the writing career picked up. Counseling.
Yeah, writing was thriving that time during the pandemic, because everybody took to writing because they had a lot of time and space also of their own.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, and then counseling, because once people started feeling the what is called cabin fever, right? The pressure of being in a confined ecosystem with the same human beings for a long period of time, then those stressors kicked in. And suddenly counseling was so much in demand. So the advantage of having this life is that, there is always something to do.
Yes.
And it's been 22 years almost since I quit my corporate job. And I don't think I've been idle for a single day, although I don't advertise, I don't even have a website anymore.
Yeah.
But work keeps finding its way to me.
Correct.
So yeah, that's been my
So that's amazing journey, I can say, sir. But I always feel you work in different spaces as a counseling, as a writer, as a ghost writer. And you have to switch your mindset every day from one thing to the other. How do you navigate, sir, through all this? Does whatever experience or whatever you get from this field, doesn't it go into the counseling also, or to your ghost writing also?
Yes, and
Yes.
it's cross-pollination,
Yeah.
and it is very positive cross-pollination. Because in order to be a good counselor, I need to keep upgrading my skills. I need to learn about new therapeutic frameworks. I need to hone my techniques. So a lot of reading is involved, and those ideas, because it's in the same brain, I can utilize, I can leverage as a writer, or very quickly translate that into a learning experience in a classroom.
Yeah, the same continues.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, and then the other way around also. Like, for example, I love this idea of imperfection.
Yes.
So I gravitated towards this Japanese way of thinking called Wabi-sabi.
Okay.
And then I did it as a training program. I researched for months, and then I created the module, I offered it, it became a super hit. And now I'm able to take that idea and offer it to clients in therapy whenever it is relevant, and they find a lot of resonance in it. So, it's incredible. And yes, let me give you another example. For one of my ghostwriting assignments, I was traveling around the country meeting this fabulous, amazing human beings, business leaders whose faces you see on the covers of business magazines.
Okay.
And talking to them gave me so much insight. And then I'm able to take that to the classroom and say, you know what, I met so-and-so person and this is what he told me.
Yes.
And it was so inspiring. So it's just amazing cross-pollination across
Cross-pollination of
locations. So the way I look at it is that I would like to think that I'm like this bamboo shoot who's sprouting deep roots, and gaining a lot of nourishment from the work that I do.
Yes.
That's what I'm able to shoot up.
Other than this, you're also doing something called as bibliotherapy. That's a new thing for the society, I can say. And what is this bibliotherapy all about, sir?
Yeah, it's at the intersection point of writing and counseling, if you think about it. So bibliotherapy, in very layman's terms, is leveraging the power of the written word in order to find healing, in order to experience therapy. So there is this doyen in the field named James Pennebaker, who for the last 25 plus years has been enriching the field. He's given us a very supple framework of thinking about bibliotherapy. And he's focused primarily on what is called expressive writing. You essentially give the client writing assignments, and those writing assignments are so meaningful, relevant, and aligned that the client ends up gaining some clarity about what is happening with them. They might even be able to find solutions to their problems. Or if, at the very least, if nothing else happens, by writing about what's happening to them, they achieve catharsis.
Correct.
So the expunging of emotions, that is very, very important. So,
I have experiences.
Yeah, so
myself.
Journaling.
Yes.
Basic journaling is a form of bibliotherapy.
Correct.
But bibliotherapy can also offer very interesting activities. For example, if I were to tell you, think about the title of your autobiography.
Okay.
So let's do this as an activity.
Huh.
So in order to come up with the title, what would you have to do?
No, I have to think about my own journey,
Yes.
and then think of a suitable title. Like maybe for my autobiography, you can say that walking on a brink or something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So you see, the moment I asked you that question, you had to connect within yourself. Think about the major themes of your life.
Yes.
And distill the central idea, the core identity of you, and then try to create a title around it. So, although this is an assignment that results in only 5 words, but imagine the level of connection with self that is required to even do this. People can take months to come up with this,
Yes.
and they are introspecting, cogitating during this period. Or if I were to tell you, can you write a character sketch? Now, this is the character sketch of the person that you will become 5 years from now. And you write this in the third person.
Okay.
Now, in order for you to do that, what you will have to do subconsciously is set goals for yourself.
Yes.
And imagine
5 years, where will I be?
Yes.
Yes. So, that I'll have to imagine, set goals, and
Yes.
then,
Correct. So, you're projecting strengths, skills, abilities, behaviors that you may want to embody 5 years from now.
Yes.
So, you are actually subconsciously setting goals.
You are manifesting.
Well, I wouldn't
Can
like
you
to
call
use
it?
that word.
Yeah, because that's a
yeah. But it can be a source of inspiration for yourself. That if you are able to visualize something, you will maybe put in more aligned efforts in order to achieve that outcome. So this is the expressive writing part of bibliotherapy.
Okay.
But one of the things that is underplayed in this field that doesn't get sufficient attention is the ability of reading activities.
Okay.
To achieve.
This is very new to me. How does reading really, act as a therapy?
Let me explain to you.
Yeah.
When you read anything, you can experience 3 kinds of emotions.
Okay.
Voyeuristic emotions. These are also called peeping Tom emotions. That you are looking at a person drowning, you yourself are not drowning, and you're just watching it as a spectacle. This doesn't offer much of healing.
Okay.
Right? And then there is the vicarious emotions. Vicarious emotions are emotions that you experience secondhand.
Okay.
So you see the person drowning, and you can actually experience the sensation of drowning yourself. The empathy towards that character becomes so strong that it's almost as if it is happening to you. And you are able to experience those emotions. And the third are called visceral emotions. These are deeper emotions. So in addition to the fear of drowning and the trauma of that moment, you're able to experience deeper emotions that might result from those emotions, from that situation.
Okay.
So, vicarious and visceral emotions, when experienced by a reader, offers a connect with oneself. It's not just what is happening to the character or what the writer has told about the character. Now, the reader becomes a participant in this. And they bring something of themselves to the reading experience.
Okay.
Now, this is very, very useful when a person is not ready yet to talk about their own traumas. They might be feeling too intense about it. But you can.
But when they see a character similar, they really try to connect.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So that person is in a similar situation. It's not happening to me. So now I'm able to distance myself from the situation.
Okay.
And then I start projecting my emotions onto the character. So you can ask a lot of very profound questions like, okay, the story did not give you a conclusion about what happened to the character. What do you think happens?
Okay.
So now what the person is doing is trying to find closure for something that's happening in their own life.
Okay.
So
they're trying to find solutions for their own trauma.
Yes.
Yes.
So solutioning, catharsis, knowledge enrichment,
Okay.
voyeurism, all kinds of benefits can be accrued through reading activities alone. And for people,
do you recommend a kind of reading to them, or is it random reading?
No, it's not random reading. That would be the difference between just reading and bibliotherapy. The therapist and the client sit together and identify an apt work of literature
Okay.
to be consumed.
Yeah.
And I try to create banks. Like, for example, I did a project on grief counseling using bibliotherapy. So I created a data bank of stories that are very, very well attuned to that particular situation.
Okay.
And then people can pick and
Or
choose
grief-filled stories.
all stories.
You have brought it together so that you can.
And
Yes.
incredibly good
Yeah.
works of literature which deal with different aspects of grief.
Okay.
So one is about the death itself, one could be about the journey of dying, one could be about maybe the impact it has on somebody else. Then there are stories
Maybe
in which,
financially bankrupt.
exactly.
Huh.
So if the client is going through financial hardship because of the death,
Huh.
then can you find a story in which the character is going through financial hardship and how they emerge out of it?
Yeah.
So it's really beautiful. And so yes, the choice of literature is deliberate. That is one distinguishing factor. The second is that after the reading, soon after the reading, there has to be a processing of the reading experience. Otherwise, those emotions, the thoughts that come up, can just dissipate.
Oh.
So the therapist speaks to the client about the reading experience and helps them to draw a narrative, a meaning out of what they consume.
Okay. So it's better even if they write whatever they have read.
Yes.
That's also,
Yeah,
I don't know.
they can-
That's also just a suggestion.
As they are writing. So I also encourage some clients
Because
who are,
when they write, a lot of thoughts come, and it is a slow process. Instead of immediately saying something,
yes,
if they sit and write,
yes,
is it not so? Sir?
absolutely. So
Yeah.
what happens is some clients who are very organized will say that as I'm reading, I'll take notes in the margins of the book.
Okay.
And then they put together a report and send to me.
Yeah.
And then we start processing the report in our
Okay.
sessions.
Okay. Sir, apart from all this, you were a novelist and you have written a lot of books. Behind the Silicon Mask is the first book that you have written? No, that was a
Wiser
last
After
book.
was the first. Wiser After was the first.
Okay.
Then came Bangalored, the Expat Story.
Huh.
It's a non-fiction narrative, journalistic in nature. Wiser After came in, Behind the Silken Mask came in 2012.
Okay.
And that was the last novel that I published.
Oh,
After
that was the last novel.
Yeah.
So, if you had to say about behind the Silicon Mask to the audience about your book, what would you like to say?
Well, it's the premise of the story is that there is a serial killer in the city of Milwaukee targeting immigrants, and this IT community, Indian IT community over there, becomes a prime target, and so it becomes a thriller.
Where does this happen? Story
In the city
Milwaukee.
of Milwaukee,
Milwaukee.
downtown
Okay.
Milwaukee mainly,
Huh.
with some parts happening in Bangalore because it's the IT industry. You have an on-site team and an offshore team.
Okay.
So there is a project delivery that is due, that is very crucial, and then there is a young couple that is deciding to have intimacy, and then there is a father who's scrambling for funds to save his child because his health insurance has expired.
Okay.
So you have these various traumas and crises unfolding in different apartments in the same
Different
apartment
settings.
complex.
Huh.
And so the climax is the culmination of all of these together, with what happens to the primary protagonist and what happens to the serial killer.
Okay, that's amazing, sir. Having, stories in different settings and everything coming to a climax. That's really hard to work on. That's what I feel.
And it's a lot of fun also.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun writing the climax.
Yeah.
The climax itself unfolds over 80 pages.
Okay. And your book, Bangalored, the Expat Story. In this book, you have written about expatriates. So, can you tell me, why did you focus on this particular group, sir?
Yeah, it was 2004, exactly 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I saw that a lot of expatriates were coming to Bangalore. And the obvious conclusion is, oh, they must all want to belong to the IT industry or they are somehow related to the IT industry. But I didn't believe that. I believed that a great number of expatriates were coming to the city for a variety of experiences. And with that belief, I started the story.
Okay.
The first person I met was a Dutchman who had broken his toe went to a hospital and fell in love with the nurse who bandaged him.
Okay.
And then I also came across a sculptor from Scotland, a gay man who was in a relationship with an activist in Bangalore. I met all kinds of a Japanese businessman. I met, I'm trying to remember, yes, a Brazilian girl who had come to India because she fell in love with an Indian man, and then
Okay.
the relationship broke apart, but her love for the city and the country was quite enduring, and she decided to stay back. She stayed here for a few years.
Okay.
I met somebody who came from Germany, which is considered the home of Western music, and she was learning Western music in Bangalore, which for me was very, very interesting. So I met a variety of people, and the whole idea of the book was that it's a travelogue, but unlike in a normal travelogue wherein the author is traveling, here the author is the stationary person and everybody else is traveling.
Everybody else is traveling.
And
Very
it
nice.
is trying to find out why they are here, what brought them here, what is keeping them here, and will they want to make this place their home. And Bangalore was the right place to write this book because in 2004, half of the expatriates in India were in Bangalore.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And your collection of short stories, Wiser After, where you have given narratives, and these are very, very, what to say, diverse. So, what do you want to say about your short stories?
Well, Wiser After was a failed experiment. I had quit my IT job in 2003 and I was getting very antsy about seeing my name on print. So I rushed through this book. I had not developed my skills as a writer. And to be very honest, it's a very badly written book.
Okay.
But I got it self-published through Writers Workshop in Kolkata. The ideas, I still stand by the ideas. I thought some of them were good, and one day I would like to redevelop those stories and make them better using the level of skill that I possess today.
Okay.
So the stories were classified in two parts. So it was about myopia, short-sightedness. So one was personal myopia and the other was collective myopia.
Okay.
Collective myopia stories dealt with how we are not dealing with the incredibly important crisis that we as a species face, including global climate change. So how we have knee-jerk reactions to things and we are unable to look past the day or the quarter and say, okay, so long as I am able to satisfy my need today, I'm fine. So I looked at this idea from the prism of individuals who are unable to see beyond their nose, and then we as a species.
Okay. They are very, very conservative people, you can say. The stories of...
Well, they are like you and me. They're just very fallible
very
people.
fallible people. Okay.
Yes. Yes. And I was trying to explore maybe my place in the world and whether I had something significant to say about the idea of us not taking corrective action soon enough.
Okay. And coming to your ghostwriting, you have been doing this from past 10 years, I can say. So, what were the challenges that you have faced? And yeah.
Yeah. So I started ghostwriting in 2013. So 11 years almost now. 8 books, 8 full-length books I have completed in this time. And well, there are interesting challenges. Now, in writing, you can put all of yourself and you can have an opinion and you can state it very blatantly. And so you don't necessarily have to worry about repercussions. But when you're a ghostwriter, you're embodying the personality, the character, even the life of somebody else. So my counseling experience comes in very handy. A, to interview people to get the inputs for the book, and B, to try and empathize with my client and understand the world that he or she occupies.
Okay.
How do I represent that world faithfully? Because it's important for me to tell their story and not to bring my ideas.
So in these ghost stories, you have covered autobiographies, is it? Or is it fictional stories also? How do you do that?
Well, there have been 2 autobiographies. One work of fiction, somebody actually wanted me to ghostwrite their fiction work.
Okay.
They gave me a basic premise, then I had to write it. But for the most part, they would be non-fiction works.
Non-fiction works.
And essentially, people see ghostwriters in order to establish themselves as thought leaders in their domain.
Okay.
So they want to communicate to their audiences.
Basically, they are corporate CEOs.
They could be CXO level people, even chairperson or ND level people. They could be celebrities like sports people or sports stars or
Scientists
movie
also.
stars. People like that from government agencies who might have achieved certain significant results.
Okay.
So such people would come and a lot of them happen to.
But you have to really delve deeper into their subject and then understand and then.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And that's the challenge. So it requires a lot of information assimilation. I've written a book on Ayurveda. I've written a book on scientific research. I've written a book
so
on
that
finances.
your knowledge has become rich.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. The cross-pollination.
The cross-pollination.
So you become a generalist in a sense of speaking, and then because you're able to connect all of these dots.
Okay.
That is a super specialization. So it's a generalist approach that leads to a super specialization, having the ability to do something because you're exposed to so many domains. Even even if I'm writing simple brochure or ad copy for somebody, I have to understand that domain.
Yes.
So it really is, very hard.
A lot of research goes into it.
Research, yeah definitely. So I have this folder in which sometimes when I want to introspect, let's say end of the year, December 31st is looming, and then I try to take stock of the year. I look at those folders and I realize, this year I did this, and then I did this, and I did this. Because very soon after I finish a project, I forget that I did that.
Yeah.
So it's very nice to...
You have become a profound scholar, I can say, getting into diverse subjects, understanding it. Yes.
A humble
that is a
pursuer of knowledge, I would say. Because the one thing that I've realized is that the more you learn about certain things, the more you realize that there is so much to learn and there is so little we know.
Yeah.
Right? We sample spoons from oceans of knowledge and we start thinking of ourselves as...
Even if we learn from our cradle to the grave, still we have learned only a speck of that vast ocean. Isn't it?
And that humility is very helpful in all these professions because it makes you a better counselor, it makes you a better trainer. You don't go into a classroom saying, I know something that you don't know or I'm superior to you. You don't go to a client in counseling and say, oh, you have a problem, let me solve it for you. So
the approach.
It becomes a bedrock on which you practice your professional skills.
Okay. So coming to you being a trainer. Okay, you have done it for our Spark Writers Retreat also. A few questions which helps the aspiring writers I would like to ask. The first one is in fiction writing. Basically, I'm interested. You are both a fiction and a non-fiction writer, and you have acclaimed that high professional level also in both of this. But then when it comes to fiction writing, the nuances of fiction, what would you like to say, sir?
Firstly, at the heart of fiction, or even non-fiction for that matter, is conflict. Do you have a compelling conflict which will make the story interesting? As a writer, you need to pick conflicts that resonate with you.
Okay.
So, what are the issues that you have not resolved for yourself? What are the questions for which you are seeking answers? You will find conflicts over there. And if you write about the conflicts that are important to you, chances are that the work will be of a higher quality. And chances are that as you write your story, you may start finding insights for yourself.
Okay.
Because end of the day...
Because some of the writers, they have a storyline storyline before them, and then they write. Some of the writers start somewhere, and as they go, whatever insights they get or whatever they feel, whatever twists, as they go on writing, different thoughts come to them, and they write that way. So which do you prefer? So which do you advise? Should they follow a storyline, a ready-made storyline, and then they should start writing, or
I would suggest that you should do what works for you. There are some people who are very organized thinkers, and for them, if they don't have that structure beforehand, if they cannot see the next few miles of the highway, they may not even start their car.
okay?
For such people, planning beforehand, structuring is very, very important. And then there are those who are very spontaneous thinkers.
No,
You can think
yeah.
of them as people who like to drive very fast on a foggy day,
Huh.
and all they can see is 10 feet ahead of them, and they're perfectly happy driving in those conditions.
Okay.
So if you're that, then all the best. Then do that. For me, what I have learned is that a hybrid approach works.
Okay.
So I would like to have some idea of the initial part of the arc of the story, the arc of the characters, so that I have some visibility. But I would also like to be driven by spontaneity. I
Okay.
am also open to completely negating the structure that I have created and going on a new path if I think that this path is more exciting.
Okay.
And I also firmly believe that if you have developed your characters strongly enough, they start becoming real. They start occupying a space in your mind that is all their own.
Okay.
And therefore, if you try to get them to do things that are contrarian to their innate character, they will start rebelling. You'll hear the voice of the character in your head saying, "No, I won't do that. Why are you forcing me into this kind of a mold?"
Yeah.
So, in that way, writing is a very schizophrenic experience.
Okay.
That you start embodying so many different voices and characters in your head.
Yeah.
But I think what works for me is a combination of planning and spontaneity.
Okay. Combination of planning and spontaneity. That's very nice. And coming to the character building also, like all human beings are not perfect. Okay. When we create a character of an protagonist, antagonist, or supporting characters, we usually create character with flaws. That's what I feel. So, how do you create a flawed character?
I think even
Yeah.
here, it would be nice if you, as a writer, if there is a flaw in you that you are unable to accept, giving that flaw to the character can offer very interesting results. Here
Okay.
I'm trying to bring my counseling experience into writing.
Yeah.
Imperfection is mandatory,
Correct.
right? What really resonates with the reader is an imperfect character. You create a perfect character, and an average reader will not be able to connect with them at all.
Okay.
That empathy doesn't arise. The story doesn't become compelling. And also, if the character is perfect, and I don't even know how to define the word perfect, but let's say for argument's sake that the character is perfect.
An ideal character.
An ideal character. Then what is the transformation for them? Why should you read the story? He's perfect right at the beginning. So there is going to be no transformation towards the end. Right? So it's the transformation of the protagonist and the antagonist and other characters which makes the story interesting.
Yes.
If there is no progress, if there is no challenge, then why is the reader reading this? So
Okay.
imperfection and glaring imperfection is must to create a compelling character.
Correct.
Right? And I would say that try and find imperfections that rile you, that make you
What kind of
uncomfortable.
imperfections you can, like rudeness in a character or jealousy or something like that?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you take an emotion, so you'll find ideas for imperfections around emotions. You just spoke about jealousy.
Yeah.
So, okay, this character is incredibly giving in a relationship, but his jealousy consumes him. So he's not able to give his wife the freedom to explore her own life, and she's feeling cloistered.
Okay.
So now here, suddenly you have an interesting situation.
Correct.
Out of that imperfection emerges a primary conflict. Out of the primary conflict emerges engagement of the reader.
Correct.
Right? So somebody else might be driven by anger. Right? Anger is the defining emotion for them, or somebody else is always anxious or panic stricken. So that's what defines them. So you find that primary emotion, and from the emotion you find the trait or a behavior, and then you say, here is the thing that really is compelling, and then you also at the same time have to give this character a lot of redeeming qualities, qualities that endear the reader to them. Then say, oh wow, I really wish that this character succeeds because he or she is so likable.
Okay.
So you'll have to balance those needs, and as you hone your craft,
Okay.
you will know how to do that better.
That is fantastic, sir. Very interesting also. Character building is a very interesting thing. I love building characters and bringing layers in the characters and all those is very important. And coming to the story as a whole, like what's the difference between an action driven story and a character driven story? And which do you recommend? Like,
Well, I don't look at them as mutually exclusive. You
okay.
can have an extremely strong character driving an action related plot. So, but then you'll notice the trend, especially in the era of OTT platforms, that building characters becomes primary because people come back because they are invested in the character. Season after season, you have to pull the audiences back into your universe. So they will create a strong character, establish a character in the first 2 to 3 episodes, or in a novel in the first 2 to 3 chapters, and then around this character. So in a character-driven story, slack of action once in a while is
Yeah.
forgiven because the character is so important that I'm willing to look into a tangent in the storyline. I'm willing to forgive certain things that don't work. Right now, if you, on the other hand, have a pure action-driven plot wherein the protagonist is interchangeable, instead of Miller, it could have been Jones, and the story would have been exactly the same.
Okay.
In that, everything revolves around twists and turns. It is about trying to be unpredictable. So maybe the pressure on the writer is more on that. But I would suggest that trying to see that, a book is only about plot or only about character would not be advisable, because both are important.
Both are equally
And
important.
as a writer, you need to focus on both.
Like if I take the epic Mahabharata, what do you say? Is it a character driven or a action driven?
So the Mahabharata is a great example. There is a
Yeah.
compelling, universally recognizable conflict about territory. I mean, even before we became human beings, we were territorial.
Okay.
So whose territory is it? Whose rights? Who can claim this particular land? So that is the central premise, right? And the end of the Mahabharata is about achieving that particular goal. But throughout the saga, what you see is character development. We have side plots, right? You suddenly see Arjuna's journey. He goes off into various lands, marries many princesses, and comes back. And then you have Krishna Jarasandha happening here. You have Bhima's storyline going somewhere,
Yeah.
right? So
So it's a combination. It's a
Yes.
perfect combination, I can say, between
Yeah.
characters and action. Is it
Yes,
not? Sir?
and it's very evident to me, at least I would like to think that it is evident, that this is not the work of a single person.
Yes.
This is a work that has been honed over generations.
Correct.
We don't even know how many writers contributed to this and enriched the mythology for us.
Correct. Sir, you had a stint as a journalist also in your career. So can you speak about that, sir?
Sure. Uh, my desire to be a journalist started in '94. I was an engineering student in Bombay, and I contributed to this newspaper called Metropolis on Saturday. It's part of the Benetton Coleman stables, and seeing my name in print intoxicated me, and I wanted more of the same. So after I finished my engineering, I did get a campus job in Reliance. So between the time that I finished my exams and the time that I joined the job, I tried to find some work as a journalist in Mumbai, and I was rejected everywhere. In fact, one particular editor that I met told me that he's going to do me the biggest favor that anybody would ever do, and refuse me a job so that I can go be an engineer and be happy. So
That is the biggest favor he did.
he thought he was doing me a favor, and I can
Yeah.
understand that. Conventional wisdom says that you can have a better quality life as an engineer.
Okay.
So then after Reliance, I joined Infosys. I was posted in Bangalore, and I remember one particular morning, the morning that I reached Bangalore for the first time. It was 5 a.m. And I saw this large hoarding announcing Bangalored Today, the only English magazine in Dakshina Kannada.
Okay.
And I thought, oh, maybe here I have a chance. So eventually I did go and meet the editor, and he was happy with the columns that I had written in Mumbai, and he gave me an opportunity.
Okay.
And I started doing small human interest features initially.
Mm-hmm.
Then I started doing a little more complex stories. I learned to differentiate between fact and perception. I learned to see the story from various aspects, to understand that there is a stakeholder map to every story, and how looking at it from one vantage point changes your perception of what is actually happening. So that was a very, very educating, enriching experience. I eventually started doing cover stories for Bangalored Today.
Okay.
Now, of course, during
That's
all
a
this time,
magazine or a
it's a monthly magazine.
monthly magazine? Okay.
Yeah. And since I was an Infosys employee, I couldn't have a secondary source of revenue. So I did all of this for free.
Okay.
And quite often when I was working 60 to 70 hours a week in Infosys, so it would just be either holidays or weekends. Sometimes just Saturday evening at 7 p.m. If once I finish my work day, I'll just go there and say, is there something to proofread? Is there something that I can edit? I was so fascinated. I just wanted to belong
Right.
in journalism in some way.
Oh.
And then, of course, once I quit Infosys, I wrote Bangalored, and that was a pure journalistic endeavor. And then I tried to write a historical novel on the Naxalite movement.
Oh.
The novel is written, it never found a publisher.
Okay.
And I have
That's
not-
red curry.
It's called Red Curry. And I've never gone back to it because life took over, other things became prominent. But that was also very investigative in nature. I had to go to different parts of Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh. I had to try and
Why don't you publish it, sir?
it will one day definitely come out. It's fully written. I would like to rewrite it. I need a month to just do that, and I've been putting it off.
Yeah.
I've been prioritizing other work
Okay.
in the meantime. So that was also very journalistic. So because of that, I got an opportunity to belong in the Asia Journalism Fellowship in 2009. So
And you have worked for some other Singapore.
yes, so this was in Singapore. This was
Asia.
offered in NTU. And then after that, I befriended an amazing man named Murtaza Razvi there. He was a journalist from Pakistan, the features editor of Dawn.
Okay.
And he offered me an opportunity to write blog posts in Dawn, which meant that suddenly I was writing to a subcontinental audience. People from India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Pakistan.
Okay.
And I could write on a variety of topics. I could explore my passion for cricket. I wrote about culture. I wrote about politics. So that was exciting. And then I used to write columns in the New Indian Express. So my profile as a journalist built very organically over a period of time. And then the last couple of years, I have had the honor of writing the cover story for Frontline.
Okay.
So the last one was on artificial intelligence and what it might mean to us as a species.
I have seen that. Can we read an expert from that?
Sure, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Turing was projecting heuristic problem, solving abilities on missions that were amoebae compared with the primates we place on our laps today. According to him, a computer could be said to be artificially intelligent if it could mimic human responses under specific conditions. With that in mind, he proposed a test in which a human and a computer would answer the same set of questions posed by another human. And this second human would be asked to guess which responses stemmed from the human and which from the computer. Turing might have relished watching the latest AI phenomenon known as ChatGPT attempt to pass his test.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, please explain this.
AI, the advent of AI is obviously interesting. It poses an existential threat to us, and at the same time, businesses are seeing it as an incredible opportunity. This is the bus that nobody wants to miss, because this could lead to the birth of the first trillionaires
Okay.
amongst human beings, or it could end up devastating all of us. Or it could be a combination of the two. So
because especially for the writers, AI has been a threat because I can say because all our creativity is gone. That can do much better than us.
well, yes, I do see why people would be anxious about it because an AI that can mimic intelligence can obviously take away certain jobs, especially the repetitive jobs or the stale jobs, the ones that do not require creative input at all. What the AI, what artificial intelligence hopefully will never be able to do is come up with new knowledge, come up with a new way of looking at something. As of now, only human beings possess that. So if you do something that is truly creative, and by which I mean that if you do something that has never been done before, then you're safe. And I keep joking that, even if I do lose my writing career to AI, I still have my counseling career to fall back upon because I don't see AI becoming a good counselor in the next decade or so. So I still have some time.
Yeah. Because many of the writers think that it is not ethical also to follow the AI, and then that is what I have seen. And they are able to even, I mean, if if we follow the AI and write a novel, they are able to find it out. Please,
Yes,
yeah,
there might be.
I think there was a Japanese. The other day I was telling Saureen also. There's a Japanese writer. Okay, she is a very prolific writer, and she got some award also. And then they found out that all 10% of her work was from AI. So,
Yes, yes. So the question is, are you using it as a tool or are you using it as a crutch? If you want AI to do the heavy lifting in writing, then the question is, why are you being a writer?
but how do you know that anything that comes from AI, even if we ask it to do a grammar check, then again it is from AI only. It is, I
Well,
mean, it
there
is,
is one
yeah.
of the things that I learned during my research is that
Huh.
imperfection is what helps you be creative. Like AI cannot create imperfect work in the sense that it is bound by the rules of grammar. It's got an enormous database from which it pulls out. So it's essentially trying to string together words in the sequence in which it has been strung before.
Okay.
So your imperfection, your ability to draw in a turn of phrase that has never been used before is what makes you stand out. And AI, as of now at least, is unable to replicate that. But more than that, whether you can find whether a work is plagiarized or not, I'm more interested in knowing why is somebody trying to be a writer if they don't want to write.
Okay.
It's a creative endeavor. Nobody is forcing you to do it. And if you do not derive joy out of the process,
Yeah.
then maybe the question is
You're not a
writing the
writer at all.
right path for you?
Yeah.
So that's something that is very interesting. And okay, maybe people can look at it as a quick way to make money, to get glory, to get fame. So maybe we'll have a generation in which such writers exist amongst us, and maybe that's par for the course. I wouldn't want to look at it from a doomsday perspective. I would want to look at it as something that needs to be resolved. AI is going to intrude into every realm of our life, including creative realms, and we need to figure out how we will coexist with this particular phenomenon
Yeah.
and how we retain our essence as human beings.
Okay. Sir, in these days, that especially the young adults, they're feeling so anxious. Anxiety has become I mean, an aspect of their daily life, and they have a lot of peer pressure, parental pressure, and then outside also there's a lot of competition. To excel, it's very difficult for them. So, and I have seen that there is a suicidal tendency also developing among them. So, what advice would you like to give to this young adult to cope up with this anxiety?
You're right. Post pandemic, and even with the advent of the pandemic, as a counselor, I saw anxiety becoming the predominant emotion,
Correct.
not just for youngsters, but people of all ages.
Okay.
Uh, perhaps the ambiguity in the situation. We might all have been facing ambiguities as individuals, but the macro scale ambiguities that the pandemic introduced seem to have done something. And anxiety very quickly became the predominant emotion that I was coming across. As a counselor, I have a variety of tools and techniques, frameworks, including cognitive behavior therapy. There are certain mindfulness techniques that work really well, certain mindfulness techniques that do not work at all. Then one explores the mind-body connection. So there are certain therapeutic frameworks which I'm not familiar with, so I don't want to mention them. But people can cope with it. So it's an emotion. Trying to dismiss the emotion obviously will not work. Completely accepting it, understanding what that anxiety is teaching them is important, because we learn from our negative emotions. They are our teachers. So one of the great ideas about anxiety is that anxiety affects us more because it's diffused. We are unable to crystallize it. So for example, you would say, I have a fear of heights, but you will say, I'm anxious about the trip that I'm about to embark upon. So anxiety is not well defined. So you don't know whether you
No,
have
you don't
enough
know
money.
how severe it is. It
No,
may be in
not just
different
that.
degrees.
No, it's not just the degree. The degree obviously poses a problem. On top of that, we are anxious about things that are not crystallized. So you might be when I say I'm anxious about the trip, am I anxious about the financial aspects of it, about my physical safety, about the time away from my family, or about something else that might happen that I have not even defined. So anxiety affects us so immensely because we haven't defined it. It is like trying to fight a shapeless monster.
Okay.
So one of the first things that we need to do is to crystallize anxiety and convert them into fears. Because for every fear we can come up with an action plan.
Okay.
But if you're saying, oh, I don't know what is going to happen tomorrow, what plan can you have for that?
Yeah.
You're not even defining the problem. So
Yeah.
through fear, through the crystallization into fear, we are able to define the problem, break
Okay.
it up into smaller problems, and then have an action plan for each one of them.
Okay.
Then we feel more in control. And then you brought up the other aspect of youngsters, the rigors of modern day life. In that, I think what really helps cope with anxiety is resilience.
Okay.
How do we build resilience as a skill? Instead of looking at setbacks as something that shouldn't happen. And this again, quite often I have seen in my journey that it comes from the quest for perfectionism. That I want things to be just like this. If things are not that way, something has gone wrong. But life doesn't adhere to templates and patterns. How do we then acknowledge that there will be vagaries, there will be ups and downs, and how do we take it in our stride? Even if we are affected temporarily, can we then bounce back? And that seems to be the key skill that is missing, or that needs to be inculcated in the new generation. Because I'm seeing that generation after generation, this skill is getting diluted. Because I see my parents, they were more resilient than me. My grandparents were even more resilient. So when people had very few resources at their disposal, they were better able to navigate.
They were
because
grounded. They were really resilient that time, I feel.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's a skill that we need to learn, because
Yeah.
global climate change and artificial intelligence together is going to pose a threat that we have never before experienced. And our ability to deal with sudden shocks, sudden disruptions in normal life is going to make all the difference, I think.
Sir, actually, what I have seen is in young adults and also in these adolescent age, these children want to belong to a group. That is a tendency naturally. They don't want to be a loner, and they try their level best. Maybe they don't have the I don't call it as competency. I don't know why they get rejected from some of the groups, and they have to lead a life of loneliness. So, how do you address this problem?
Right. In this particular case, you're looking at anxiety as a secondary emotion, that the primary emotion might be loneliness. So, obviously, we'll have to help people with the development of skills that they lack. Uh, an integral part of counseling is psychoeducation and upskilling. Right? So, we help them to gain a perspective that they did not have, and we equip them with the skills and techniques that are required for them to navigate through these situations. Are they able to form social bonds? If not, can they learn that? And let's say that that's not possible because of other constraints. Can they cope with their loneliness and convert it into solitude, which is a very positive frame of mind of being by oneself?
Yes.
So we look at individuals and look at what is possible for them considering their situation.
Sir, as an author of both fiction and non-fiction, you have gained a lot of experiences. So, if you want to put writing, the complete understanding of writing in 3 or 4 lines, what would you like to say about it? What is writing to you?
Well, writing is a means of self-expression, a creative pursuit for me, and a source of joy and inspiration, because when I write, I gain clarity about what is happening inside of me. And I think writing also teaches me that it's okay to have a terrible first draft, whether it is for a novel or for life itself, that it's okay to fail. It has helped me to overcome my perfectionism, and now I have replaced with healthier ideas. So I say, don't pursue perfection, pursue excellence.
Okay.
Because excellence is about the journey, it is about incremental improvement. And therefore, when I make mistakes, not just as a writer, even as a human being, when I knowing that I'm fully fallible, I'm able to accept that, face myself in the mirror and say, okay, take 2.
Okay.
And let's go again and do this better this time.
Yeah, you can have many takes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much,
Thank you, ma'am.
Ishwar sir. Ishwar Sundaresan sir, you have given a lot of insights, not only on writing, on counseling, and your journey as a journalist has been incredible, I can say. And all your novels has been. I mean, I write. I read a few excerpts also. It was really, really good who have an exceptional way of doing things. Thank you so much for coming to this platform and giving your valuable time and insights. Thank you so much,
Thank you
sir.
so much, ma'am, for inviting me.
Yeah.
It was my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.